Thank you very much, Dr. Azam, our chair, and all our panelists for this final session for this year's Istanbul Network Conference. So just to close the whole conference, I would now like to invite Ali Salman, the CEO of Istanbul Network, and Wan Saiful Wan, the chairman of Istanbul Network, to give the vote of thanks to close the conference this year. And Dr. Azam as well. Yeah.
Okay. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. It has been entertaining and stimulating 2 days, very engaging in terms of the discussions and knowledge and debates which has created. I'll just take 5 minutes to sort of wrap up this intellectual journey, I would say, which I hope doesn't end here. Of course, no intellectual journey ends ever. When we at Istanbul Network started planning for this conference, that was about early this year, in February, March, when the council members were deliberating on the basic themes and the structure of the 5th International Conference. And I think our basic purpose, as I highlighted yesterday, was to generate objective and candid analysis on the status of liberal democracy in Muslim majority countries, especially with respect to discussions around Islam. I think I'm very happy to say that the past 2 days deliberations have been very effectively responded to our call, and I'm sure that this journey and this debate on liberal democracy in the context of Islam will continue. This conference has deliberated on both the theory and its manifestation in Muslim majority countries while presenting both historical and theoretical accounts. We have seen 22 excellent papers and 2 keynote addresses during past 2 days, and of course a lot of questions from this highly educated and engaged audience. And I was just noting that we discussed about 14 or 15 different themes in these papers. We discussed rule of law, radicalization, political Islam, democracy, liberal democracy, peace, human rights, state-society relationship, globalization, middle class, urbanization, authoritarianism, and of course secularism. Around the discussion of Islam and democracy, both theory and practice. By no means I think I can summarize the main messages here. I think we will all have different takeaways from these papers, and we will continue to engage into discussion further. But at a very personal level, I think I would like to draw maybe 3 parallels, 3 takeaway messages. One interesting parallel which I'd like to draw is between what Professor Khalid Masood started in terms of the classical political theory, Muslim political theory of twin brothers, and Waqas Ahmad and also Masli Malik talking about the Ghanouchi model of separation between between the religion and politics on different grounds. And second, in parallel, I would like to draw between Tunku Zainul Abidin speech yesterday about Malaysia's own roots of democracy, and again Masli Malik emphasis on finding the local identity, which leads me to also finally say that I think we should all accept that Muslim societies are very diverse in nature, and any effort to oversimplify it by any actors, local or international, can only complicate the things. And therefore, I hope that this conference has helped us in improving our understanding about these complexities which lie behind the media headlines which we often hear about the Muslims and democracy in general. I would like to urge all of you to help disseminate some of these ideas further on various forums. I have received requests of follow-up actions, and we will going to talk about that. Wan Saiful is going to talk about that. Also, suggestion came up like a policy statement or declaration, but I think we are not going in that direction. It will be too much of an impossible exercise to sort of do that definitely in near future, because we have seen a very really diverse intellectual opinion, and we should respect diversity in that respect. But we certainly, from Istanbul Network point of view, would like to continue engaging this exercise. Thank you so much.
Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. On behalf of IS Malaysia, I'm not going to, all the points has been taken by Ali Salman, but on behalf of IS Malaysia, I think we would like to thank the main organizer, especially from the Istanbul Network, collaborated with us. Having this 2-day seminar is a quite important seminar, and I think this seminar will not be successful without a full support, especially from the main sponsor, Center for International Private Enterprise, SIDE, and co-sponsors Atlas Network and Institute for Democracy and Economic Affairs, IDEAS. Without their support, especially financial support, I think that this seminar would be cannot be materialized. IS also would like to offer the future collaborations organizing this conference, and also we would also like to make an offer to co-publish with the proceedings, perhaps after the speakers perhaps updated and revised their versions of what we have seen in the papers. Some of the speakers, we don't have the papers here, but we hope that Istanbul Network can work on this. Perhaps if we want to have it the hard copy, then we can co-publish it, or we have it on the soft copy. Now, the young generations, they don't like hard copy, unlike myself. Thanks a lot to the team, both from Istanbul Network, IDEAS, IS team. We have a very good team, despite small number. The technical team, Alhamdulillah, it went smoothly. But I would like to seek your apology. Yesterday we have a little bit hiccup on the flow of the meals, but we learned the lesson today. Alhamdulillah, so far so good. So we hope that you enjoy the seminar that we have here, the food. For those who comes abroad who are not Malaysians, I think please extend your days, couple of days visit. But unfortunately, this is not a good weather. We are experiencing a heavy monsoon. The East Coast are experiencing floods here and there. But relatively on the west side, despite it's a gloomy weather, please go and visit this. This side of the country rather than the East Coast. I wish you all the best. And thank you again, Istanbul Network and IDEAS, for having this successful collaboration. Thank you. Assalamualaikum.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullah. Firstly, my role is very straightforward. I'm just going to close the session, but I want to take this opportunity to say a few things. During the course of the last 2 days, A few people have come to me, number one, asking about what Istanbul Network is. Why in the world are you called the Istanbul Network? Why are you holding conference in KL? Where is Istanbul in this network? Some people have been asking about the governance of the organization. What is the organization? What do you do? How can we work closer together, and so on. So please allow me a few minutes to just explain all this to you, then I have a series of people to thank, but I also want to hear some words, some feedback from the audience, what you think. But let me start by introducing or maybe explaining what the Istanbul Network for Liberty is. The history behind the Istanbul Network, Ali has already mentioned yesterday in his opening remarks, that we were officially, or I don't know whether officially or unofficially, but we existed from 2011. It was on the sideline of another conference attended by like 400, 500 people at that time in Istanbul. And we realized that there's quite a lot of Muslims in this group, all interested in the concept of freedom and liberty in the Muslim world. So we decided to just invite this group of Muslim participants. Why don't we just have a chat for a short while? And that 55 people who met on the sideline of that conference eventually came up with the idea, since we are now in Istanbul, we created this network of individuals in Istanbul. Why don't we call ourselves Istanbul Network? And the purpose, the interest is very clear. It's about the concept of freedom and liberty, and therefore Istanbul Network for Liberty. So that was the history why it's called Istanbul Network. It is now registered as a foundation, as a charitable foundation here in Malaysia. So the office is here in Malaysia. The name remains, but there is an ongoing debate about whether we should stick with that name or whether we should change to something else. It really is an evolving discussion that we're still having. The organization is governed by a group of people that sits in the council, the so-called board of directors, but we call it the council. And the council members are from various different countries. I'm chair of the council at the moment. I'm from Malaysia, obviously. Ali is our chief executive officer, originally from Pakistan, but we forced him to move here in order to make sure that the office can run properly from here, and the registration is all here. So he moved his whole family to Malaysia. The sacrifice that you make. So yeah, I'll let you take some credit there. There's also another board member, Ido Mercevic, from Bosnia, formerly a student here at UIA, but has gone to do his PhD in Bosnia. What do you stand so that people know who you are? This is Ido from Bosnia. And we also have Özlem Çalga Yilmaz from Turkey, who's been with us right from the beginning. She has been chairing the sessions. I was surprised to see how many sessions you chaired throughout the day. So Özlem is another person, also sits in the council. Then we have Noh Al-Harmouzi from Morocco, Suad Adnan from Morocco, but now based in the US, and Linda Weston, based in the UK. So as you can see, and Muhammad Amin, also from the UK. As you can see, the organization is really diverse, and it's not, even though the registration of the foundation is here in Malaysia, it is run by an international network of people, and it really is a network. In terms of staff, I must admit I'm really amazed at what can be done by our full-time, a big team of full-time staff of 2 people. Ali is not even full-time. Ali is only 2 days a week with Istanbul Network, and Isabel. These 2 people really work very hard to get things done, but it shows that a lot can be achieved by a small number of people. Hopefully it will not continue to be like that. I can see the sufferings in their face every time they come to the office, but so the team is very small. The idea is to benefit from people like you. You are the experts. All we want to do is simply provide a platform for us to meet, exchange views, exchange ideas, because the principle or the philosophy is very straightforward. We believe that ideas have influence. ideas do have impact on the ground. Before any policies are introduced by policymakers, by politicians or anything, there's something in their head, at the background of their head, that would drive them to say certain things. And those are the realm of ideas. And this is where we want to work at, at influencing and challenging, debating, discussing the various different ideas that shape the concept of freedom and liberty in the Muslim world. And that's why our mission is very clear: to explore and to promote the principles and values of a free society in the Muslim world. So it's very clear. Anybody with that interest can be part of the network. And I must emphasize, this is really not meant to be an organization for Muslims. You see, the weakness of this conference that I can see personally are two. Number one, there's not enough women on the panel. And number two, there's not enough non-Muslims on the panel. And it makes us look rather exclusive male organization, which is not really the intention at all. We should work on that in the future. But I'm really glad to see, I must acknowledge the presence of Tan Sri Murphy Pakiam, former Archbishop of Kuala Lumpur, very influential and very highly respected Archbishop, former Archbishop of KL here. He's been with us for the whole 2 days. I'm really glad that you're here. So that's more or less Istanbul Network. In terms of activities, many of you have been asking what are the things that we do. It's very straightforward. Conferences, seminars, webinars, we want to do them, publications, come to a stage we would like to have things like exchange programs. If you are from Iran, you want to do, sabbatical leave in Malaysia, or if you're from the US, you want to take some sabbatical placement in Jordan, in Morocco, or wherever you are, we would really like to be able to facilitate those exchanges, especially in topics that we are interested in, because this is how ideas can flourish. But of course, just like any organization, even though I said that we were originally founded in 2011, the reality is we have absolutely no money. So we have been very consistent in being poor and trying very hard to raise further resources. That is also why I'm very glad for the support that we have received, very grateful for the support that we have received. But in terms of the activities, it's quite straightforward to think of: conferences, seminars, webinars, hopefully one day soon, this coming year. And a journal publication, we have an offer just now to co-publish the proceedings and so on. If you have anything at all that you think you can offer to the network, we would be very grateful for those assistance, those offers, because we have a platform that can be used. We do need the resources to make sure that the platform can move, can grow, can flourish. Before I go to my vote of thanks, maybe I should do the thanks now, and then I want to invite you to give some feedback as well. Let me take this opportunity to thank firstly, of course, the sponsors. IAIS, Dr. Azam, Dr. Hashim Kamali have been very generous to us in allowing us to use these facilities and helping with all the logistics, the food arrangement and so on. So food is very important, so thank you for that. This whole conference would not be possible without your help, so we are really, really grateful for that. Of course, I have to say thank you as well to the sponsors. You see the 3 logos there. Ideas is very straightforward. Ideas is the organization that I run, and Ali is Director of Research at Ideas. We basically make all the staff at Ideas become the forced labor for the conference. That's all the support that we provide. But Atlas Network, a foundation based in Washington, D.C., as well as Center for International Private Enterprise, SIPE, both of them are very generous financial sponsors of the event, provided the support to bring many of you to KL. We are really grateful for the support that they have given to us. And of course, there are other donors as well. It's amazing, when you try to raise money, there are people who give a few hundred here and there, a few thousand here and there. So things like this will be really useful. The vision is hopefully to be able to mobilize fundraising among the Muslim community and others who are interested as well, so that we can have the financial independence. The normal things, when you receive money from the US, these two financial backers are from the US, immediately there will be people questioning, so what's your agenda? So in order to bypass that or to solve that, we need to mobilize financial resources from our own. But I really do not like this idea of our own money and their money. It's really anyone with interest in the topic should be able to support. But those are the financial backers. Thank you very much to them. Thank you, of course, to the team. The team I mentioned already, Ali and Isabel at the back, and the other members of the team from Ideas as well. And of course, thank you to the speakers. So many of you have worked really hard. I know Ali has been really hard on you, and Isabel as well, in pushing you to write, to edit the papers and so on. So thank you to you, the speakers and the paper authors, for all the hard work. I hope I'm not missing anyone. I want to make a particular mention of the two keynote speakers, Professor Khalid Masood, as well as Kiai Haji Yahya Khalil Stakov, for the keynote speeches. Very, very good speeches that they have given us. A lot of food for thought. Some heavy speeches as well to start the morning. But that's really good. So I really hope that the projects that you're doing will be completed one day soon, hopefully, so that we can share with people in the audience. And of course, last but not least, thank you to all of you who's been in the audience very patiently with us from yesterday. I'm really amazed. At 5 p.m. yesterday, there was still a line queuing up to ask questions. I was thinking, usually by this time we should finish the event already. But it shows that platforms like this are really needed, and it's very rare that we get this opportunity. So I think I've included everyone. Can I just invite maybe a few people, if you have any suggestions on how we can move forward? Maybe this is now a good time, but please don't make another speech. So just very quick ideas, if there's any at all.
Thank you, Wan. Just a few comments. On a very practical note, I'm on the editorial board of Contemporary Islam. It's a journal, and I think we could probably consider not all the papers, because special issues of journals can't take so many papers, but some papers. So we can think about that. I just wanted to make a few comments about how I see this going forward in terms of taking up some of the themes. One of the issues is, I think we probably lack empirical studies. There were some empirical-based papers in the conference, and I think looking at cause and effect relations between religious variables relating to religion, and various indicators of democracy is something that we should have more of. But apart from that, also looking at predictors of democracy not related to Islam. I think we didn't consider that enough in this conference. For example, elite cohesion, presence or lack of armed resistance against the state, the presence of a capital-owning class, many factors that are not related to religion, which actually impact on democratic performance. But if those are not taken into account, then we wouldn't understand the dynamics in terms of the relationship between religion and democracy. So I think more rigorous. The panel in which Elma and Edo was, I think, was very interesting. I think we need more such studies that make more rigorous use of qualitative as well as quantitative methods. The second thing is, I think we need to have more critique of anti-democratic elements in our local and national cultures. Of course, in the case of Malaysia, I spoke about the feudal elements in our culture that work against democracy. You have the legalistic kind of discourse among Islamists, which also tends to be undemocratic. And I think we probably need more studies on this, not just for Malaysia, but for the other countries. On a more critical note, there has been a bit of, U.S. Bashing in this conference. Some comments. And I am no friend, of U.S. foreign policy. I think U.S. imperialism is a serious problem. But it is not sufficient simply to just make rhetorical statements, blaming the U.S. There should be proper studies. And I think this is something really lacking among Muslim scholars. The study of U.S. imperialism in the Muslim world, rather than just making comments, Mossad this, Mossad that, or the CIA this, the CIA that. Have proper empirical studies, and there's a lot of data available, especially after decades when information becomes declassified from the U.S. itself. So I think the connection, for example, I did some research on a U.S. Research proposal, a U.S. research project in the 60s that was meant to study political development in Latin America and it engaged, it wanted to hire American sociologists and economists. The idea was to see what kind of intervention the U.S., what kind of role the U.S. could play in intervening in terms of the political process in Latin America. Now that research proposal, which was funded by certain public agencies in the U.S., it was intercepted by some U.S. sociologists, U.S. scholars, and it was eventually, discredited, and it never happened actually. That's an example of an attempt at, the U.S. to exert its imperialistic role. So I think we need to actually study this, especially with regard to our region. We don't study this. With regard to Malaysia, for example, we know very little about U.S. interests in terms of, the context of imperialism. Okay, very quickly. All right, I want to say something specifically about Malaysia that I think we need to concentrate on. See, studies on politics in Malaysia, in general, but specifically on Islam and politics, tends to be there's little contribution to the study of Islam and politics in general, because our studies tend to be rather descriptive, quite innocent of theoretical contributions, and therefore the implications for the study of Islam and politics in general are not brought out. And I think I'd like to encourage the younger generation to pay more attention to, the larger theoretical implications of what they're doing. Go beyond simply speaking about, the facts and making descriptive statements. Just to draw a contrast with Indonesia. In Indonesia, since the 1970s, particularly the 1980s, people had been talking about Islamic movements in terms of concepts such as traditionalism, neo-traditionalism, conservatism, neo-conservatism, and so on and so forth. So there's a very rich discourse on the typology of Islamic movements. Here in Malaysia, it tends to be rather descriptive. So, although Malaysia is a high-income country, and we have, at least until a few years ago, we have richer universities than you have in Indonesia. But our theoretical contribution to the literature, not just in Islamic studies but in many fields, is actually very minimal. So I think these are areas that we need to think about seriously. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes. Okay, there are quite a few. Can I start at the front first, and then I will go back to you. So this gentleman in red, and then you, and then Chin Huan. Please, yes. And then please don't limit your comment. If you have technical issues that you want to propose as well, you want to comment on, please, by all means.
Actually, I would like to give you recommendation to continue the process, particularly about the follow-up activities. Already I told to Brother Ali to arrange a review roundtable after the program in Malaysia. I am representing the Muslim World Research Center. Last week, we had arranged a program UIA with the collaboration of Istanbul Network. That is one of my recommendations to arrange a review program with the selected people. Secondly, I have on experience with the World Islamic Economic Forum conference. I participate 7 conferences out of 12. While WIEF always arrange some roundtable program before their actual conference, the country-based, subject-based, with the small people, expert people. I would like to request to you to think it before the annual international conference. You can arrange a roundtable, region-based or country-based or even center-based in Malaysia to focus the subject, theme, idea. Thirdly, I would like to also request you to publish and or lead a special bulletin or journal with the selected article, the special writings, with also with the policy recommendation or other recommendation. Fourthly, I would like to request to identify some issues, subject for Muslim world. I have 2 subjects I always try to focus. This is one, the Muslim awareness on the strategic studies, power politics. Why I said I was involved in my country with the national think tank, even power politics and military studies. I found majority of the Muslim scholars, Muslim professionals are not seriously involved with the strategic awareness. One of the serious crises within the Muslim country is the awareness, very accurate, appropriate awareness on the strategic studies. Only few countries like Pakistan, like Iran, like Turkey, or like Qatar, they are in advance about the power, awareness of the power politics. Secondly, to identify especially for the few crises in the Muslim world, like the crisis in crisis in Syria, crisis in Burma, crisis in Kashmir, to focus. You already have said that it is a forum for free society or the liberal people, not for particularly for the blinded people. But some crises deserve the humanitarian discussion, strategic discussion, like Kashmir issue, like Rohingya issue. It is not only, this crisis is not only for Muslim. It is a humanitarian crisis. It is the world affairs crisis. These crises are undermining the whole human civilization. The people are saying that we are living in advanced stage, but many people, thousands of people are living in oppression, surface. They have no liberty, justice. So I would like to request to select. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Conferences like these are very important, that we come here, share ideas, listen, participate, agree, disagree. But I think something is lacking in this particular conference, and I hope that in future conferences that we have a more balanced view of all on board. If you're talking about Islamic movement, for example, let the people get somebody from an Islamic movement to come here and sit and talk. If we have somebody to talk for them who does not know them, and you call some of them a cult, or you make sweeping references to any party, whether I'm just giving by way of example, that is exactly what is happening to Muslims globally, that somebody else is talking for us. Somebody else is giving a narrative which is not our narrative. So if we want to be fair in a discussion like this, it is only correct that we reach out to the people of those constituents that represent that particular view and let them come here and let us dialogue, let us debate. I would prefer somebody from Brotherhood to come and talk about Brotherhood, somebody from Jamaat-e-Islami to talk about Jamaat-e-Islami and question them and debate with them and dialogue with them, as opposed to somebody who is doing a PhD on them that may not represent that view the way they would like that view to be represented. And I think this is what I have seen lacking in this particular. So all the ideas can be skewed on one side, depends on whoever the presenter is, and you are not giving the fairness and justice of the other group's representation here. Jazakumullah khair.
Sheikh Abdul Rahman, right, from Islamic Circle of North America. From ICNA, yes.
Yes.
Thank you very much. I also want to say thank you for your delegation coming all the way from the US. It's really an honor to have leaders like yourself. But can I just quickly respond to the two comments just now? Firstly, when you talk about publication of bulletin journals, can I invite everyone to subscribe to our newsletters, e-newsletter? So if you go to the website, istanbulnetwork.org, you will find that papers from the previous conferences are already there. They are already published online. And we do have new articles coming up, and if you subscribe to the online e-newsletter, you will get that on a regular basis. So that's one. But this point about having representative from other organizations, I take your point. I'm just trying to explain now why we are in this situation. The nature of this conference is academic, and therefore it starts with a request for papers, call for papers. So any academic conferences is completely dependent on the papers that are submitted to the conference, and that is what happens in this conference. Unfortunately, if a particular organization, particular person does not want to submit a paper, they will not get the chance to speak. And this is where I think we need to have some trust in the robustness of research methodologies and research ethics, where researchers do the research and document their findings. So many of us here are researchers. I think you will understand the angle that I'm coming from, in which we do the research work. So that is a bit different from the advocacy events. It's really a research-based discussion. That's why we have a situation now. But I completely take your point. I agree.
There are people who are very qualified in each of these. I'm just giving by way of example. Any other field, they are very qualified people, lots of them with PhDs, that can also be here and present their paper.
I agree. Thank you for that point taken. I was just explaining this one. Chin Huat, hopefully that's the last one. Is there anybody else who want to say anything else? And one more. Okay. Okay. Very quick, please. We're coming to 6 o'clock. We should stop. Chin Huat first.
Thank you. I had two brief points to make. Thanks for the opportunity. Number one, I think deliberations on freedom in the Muslim world cannot be complete with Muslims who live in Muslim majority countries. I think the experience of Muslims living as minority is particularly important, not only to them, but to the wider Muslim world, because that allows us to see the world in a more balanced way. I certainly would think that the debate on secularism, a secular state, would be much more comprehensive. If we have Muslim case studies on Muslims in India, in America, in Burma, Thailand, for example. Number two, Muslim politics that what we talk about is very much a product of the past. As alluded in the keynote speech in the first day, you have the old mood to think that religion cannot survive without the state cannot survive without religion. In the past, that's very true. But that's not the future we want, and we are stuck in between the two. But the past shaped our views so much so that often when we talk about Islamism, it's actually Muslim nationalism, or pan-Muslim nationalism. It's a reward against colonizations. It's a sense that our destiny has been disrupted and so on. I would think that in the conference in the future, it might be good to make that theme a bit more explicit, to see power relations, to put the others in the investigations of power relations in the Muslim society, because otherwise we can't go clear enough. Thank you.
Thank you. Azlan, and then we come back to you, Brother Said.
Azlan Awang from Bantah TPPA. It's an organization against TPPA. Okay, I think I'm not, this is the first time I'm attending conference organized by the network, Istanbul network, so I'm not aware of what are the issues that was discussed in the previous conferences. I'm quite keen to be looking at them after this. But I would like to suggest that if you would consider in future conferences or seminars to tackle issues on, let's say, trade justice, for instance, you know, or global equality or inequality, because I think on the essence of things, right, in the essence of things, I think economy is still a major issue and a major consideration for many countries. Wars, crises are also because of economic issues, poverty, inequality, and deprivation and whatnot. So I think you okay, we get it that okay, in Islam, democracy in I would sort of I hope it is justified to some extent to summarize this conference to be what is Islam vis-a-vis democracy. And I think Dr. Mazli Malik summarized it very well. I mean, concluded very well in my understanding. Okay, the Ganushi way would be a good approach, right? Okay, we get it, right? It should not be too extreme. But what are the goals for this kind of democracy? I think the democracy that we would want to achieve the justice that we're talking about, the liberty that we're talking about, freedom, right? Freedom for all, right? And I think in that context, I think we have to refer to the issues, the threats of world hegemony, imperialism. These are all factors which are is taking place, you know, with relations between Muslims and non-Muslim countries. I think there's also need to bring up issues on the South-South collaboration. I think the context of Rahmatul Alamin. It should not be just the Muslim countries in solidarity. There should be Muslim and non-Muslim solidarity, especially between the South and South countries. I think these are issues that maybe we should consider in the future. More how to achieve global equality, you know. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So, point taken. And the last one, Brother Said Imamian, if I remember it, yes.
Just a kind of empirical comments that I know that I totally agree that we could have a high-profile conference with a lot of several academics, high-profile academics participating here. But as far as I know, Istanbul Network has been based on institutional membership. At least includes institutional membership as well, and that means you have representatives of several institutions here. And first of all, thank Ali that has organized a session afterwards to introduce for the introduction of different institutions to each other. But I think you could capitalize on such a membership. You could provide, at least announce different events that your institutional members they are going to organize, and we could have bilateral or some other joint events rather than just a conference. That I agree that for such a conference it's better to be more open to invite participants from high-profile academics participants, but you need to organize some activities that is more institutional based activities that going to empower the network itself, not as just as a normal academic conference. And there are a lot of opportunities and potentials here that because several of participants they have their own weekly, monthly events in their own institutions, and sharing those events and also some publications that they have in a platform like your website or sometimes some physical gathering, it would be a good idea to improve your activities.
Good. Thank you. That's a very good point. And you know, we do have this thing called institutional membership. And we have also distributed the form. So please, if you are part of an organization, it'd be really good to formally have a relationship with your organizations. But I think I'm going to end there, and we will have some informal discussions at the back later on for those of you who can stay. So I want to, you know, at last say again, thank you very much to everyone for your participation. Let's give all ourselves a round of applause.